Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another edition of Necro-Mondays, where we showcase Necromunda Battle Reports every Monday during our science fiction gaming weeks, and this is our series Anarchy Road. It is a homegrown campaign using a homemade rule system we call the Road Wars campaign setting, and this campaign is taking place in the Ash Waste of Necromunda, which is the wasteland surrounding the hive cities of Necromunda. And this is Battle Report number 67. It is a Road War scenario that is fought between Brother Grimm as well as my friend Scream of the Emo. Brother Grimm is playing the Warboyz, an Ash Waste Nomads gang, and Scream of the Emo is playing the Red Faction, a Genestealer Cults gang. So these two gangs will be throwing it down in a road war. We're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what they're bringing for this scenario, we got pictures of the gangs as well as their stats. You can pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so the scenario for this one is Road War. The terrain pretty much set up on a 4x6 tables, and both gangs will use their entire gangs for the scenario as well. Pretty much what ends up happening is you roll a d6 to figure out who's going first, and the gangs start fighting each other. We have what's called a rolling road rules that are put on the scenario, which means that so long as one of these guys touches either end of the table, all the terrain shifts to that direction 6 inches, represent the fact that these guys are opening it up, fighting on open road on this one. Now, of course, the end of the game is whoever finishes last or puts their enemy out of action, bottle test is the winner. Now, for the experience on this one, the experience works a little bit different on this one because there's a steeper learning curve to surviving in the Ash Waste, so the experience points are much higher in this campaign setting. So what ends up happening is if you survive, you earn d6 experience points. You earn 5 experience points for taking enemy fighters out of actions, and winning leaders also earn 10 experience points. For rewards, the winning gang earns d6 times 10 credits, while the loser earns d3 times 5 credits. In the case of a draw, both gangs receive d3 times 10 credits. Now for reputation, the winning gang earns d3 reputation, and the loser also earns 1 point reputation, and also both gangs also earn a reputation if they're fighting each other for the very first time, which in this case they are, and if any gang bottles out, they lose 1 point reputation. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. Alright, so here's an average shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friend Brother Grimm and the Warboyz of the Ash Waste Nomads are located on the left-hand flank, while on the right-hand side is Scream of the Emo's Red Faction of the Genestealer Cults. Now, what their plans are, I really don't know at this point because I'm just taking photos. I'm the arbitrator in this campaign, so I really don't know what their planning is for this one because I'm just taking pictures. But it looks like that Brother Grimm has like a two-pronged attack. He's got 2 bikes on the other side that overpass on the top left-hand side. He's also got another bike as well as his Death Killer War Trike there on the left. And then, of course, I think what he's going to try to do is try to go forward with the Death Killer War Trike as well as his bike, and then flank with the other 2 war bikes as well. However, they do have their work cut out for them because I'm not sure they're aware of each other's vehicles, but that Goliath Rock Crusher has a military grade ramming prow, so I don't know if taking on that thing is head on is a really good idea. I think it's also got an enclosed crew as well. Actually, let me double check my notes here. Yeah, it's actually got an enclosed crew as well, so the toughness is 8 on that thing, so that's going to be a hard nut to crack. Alright, so with the battle plan over, let's go talk about the planet real quick for the Warboyz. Starting off from the back left, that vehicle is called the Death Killer War Trike. It is a medium vehicle. On board is Zog, Warp, the World Killer, Wes, and Slint. It's got medium body type. It's also got a turbocharger engine as well as a thruster tank. It's got scythe wheels, so it gets additional impact hits and armor saving on its tires. And it's also got a hull-mounted ramming prow, making it super deadly. And crewing that vehicle in the back is Zog, Warp, the World Killer. He's a nomad leader. He's got mesh armor, a plasma pistol, and chain sword. He's also got a respirator and overseer ability. On that vehicle is Wes, a Nomad champion. He's got mesh armor, harpoon launcher. He's also got servo claw, a Rakatansky special sawed-off shotgun, a respirator, as well as a gunner skill. And the gunner skill in our campaign setting means that you don't suffer any movement penalty, minus hit penalties from shooting on a vehicle. And driving that vehicle is Slint. He's another Nomad. He's got mesh armor, a Rakatansky special sawed-off shotgun, a fighting knife, as well as a respirator. Now, right next to him on the bottom, that is War Bike number 1. It is crewed by Lord Humongous as well as Toady. And the only upgrade they have on that one is a a polecat boarding pike for the little punk on the back. And driving his Lord Humongous, he is a Nomad champion. He's got mesh armor, a two-handed axe. He's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as bulging biceps. That way he can use that two-handed axe with one hand. And on the top there, on the top of the little boarding pike, that's Toady. He's a punk. He's armed with stub guns with dum-dum rounds, a fighting knife, as well as a respirator. And on the top, he's got two Warbikes. On the bottom, that's Warbike number 3. On the top, that's Warbike number 2. Both of them have are small frames. They also got polecat boarding bikes on it. Bike number 2's got Draka as well as Rodeo as a crew, and bike number 3's got Shaga and Bodhi. So let's go and talk about exactly what those guys are carrying. Draka, real quick, he's a Nomad who's got mesh armor, stun gun with dum-dum rounds, flail, as well as a respirator. And of course, he's got Rhodey, which is a punk, who's armed with stub gun, dum-dum rounds. He's got a fighting knife as well as a respirator. And then finally, we have Shaga, who's a Nomad. He's armed with a mesh armor, stub gun, dum-dum rounds, maul, and a respirator. And on his bike is also Bodhi, a punk, who's got a stub gun, dum-dum rounds, fighting knife, as well as a respirator. And that pretty much makes a deployment for the Warboyz. And finally, we got deployment for the red faction. That vehicle is called the Goliath. It is a large vehicle. It's got enclosed crew, weird charms, weird totems, and boarding planks on the hull. It's also got a turret-mounted heavy flamer as well as a ramming prow on the very front of it as well. And on that crew, of course, is the entire gang. In the back, we got Virion Thrace. He's a cult adept. He's got mesh armor, a cult icon, auto pistols, as well as got a psychic familiar. He's got the commanding presence ability as well as telekinesis special ability as well. And then right behind him is Jarek. He's a neophyte hybrid. He's got a hazard suit, respirator, auto gun, auto pistol, as well as blasting charges. And on the back there, on the left-hand side, we have Mordecai Black. He is an aberrant. He's got mesh armor, power hammer, and unstoppable skill. Next to him is Zyvan Black, another aberrant with mesh armor, power pick, as well as the unstoppable skill as well. Now up in the front there on the bottom, that character's name is Drisso. He's a neophyte hybrid, armed with a hazard suit, respirator, grenade launcher, frag and crack grenades, as well as an auto pistol. The vehicle, the Goliath, is crewed by a man named Rouse, who's a neophyte hybrid. He's got a hazard suit, respirator, as well as auto pistol. He's a driver. And finally, the top left there, we got Garrison Starn. He's a hybrid alkalite. He's got a hazard suit, respirator, 3 auto pistols, an extra arm, as well as nerves of steel skill. And that pretty much makes a deployment for the red faction. So deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Genestealer Cults get the initiative on this one. So for his very first activation, Scream of the Emo activates Rouse, the driver of the vehicle. He does a double move forward, moving forward 16 inches, making his way directly towards the Warboyz. At the same time that is happening as well, we have the bike number 3 on the top there. His name, I believe that guy's name is Shag, I believe that's his name. He just does a double movement on the top of the battlefield, trying to outflank the Goliath rock truck. And for Scream with Emo's next activation, he activates Garrison Starn, who also then in case also does a group activation with Drizzo. Both those guys open up directly into Lord Humongous. Fortunately for my opponent, though, he missed all of his shots. Missed all of his shots for Garrison Starn. However, Drizzo, he did manage to hit Lord Humongous with a crack grenade, but unfortunately, though, he didn't feel well the wounds. So because of that, he just gets knocked off his bike and he falls to the ground. He's currently pinned right now. So Lord Humongous on the ground, bleeding out right now. So from there, Brother Grimm decides to activate his driver Slint, who does a double action by ramming directly into the Goliath rock truck and smashing it head on. Now, in case you guys aren't aware of our rule setting, what ends up happening is that with the military grade ramming prow, you get 2d6 impact hits directly against your opponent. At the same time, he's got Scythe wheels. He also does d3 impact hits as well. And to determine the strength of the attack when you do a ramming prow, what you do is you take the toughness of the vehicle, and that acts as the strength of the attack. Now, the Deathkiller Wartrak's got a toughness of 6, which is all good and fine. In fact, had he been fighting against a normally upgraded large vehicle, that would have been wounding him on a 4-up. The problem, though, was that my friend Scream with Emo put enclosed crew on his vehicle, which means that only half the gang can shoot at any one time. So because that does limit his crew members from shooting outside the vehicle, but it adds +2 to the toughness as well as +1 to the armor save of the vehicle, which means now that the Goliath is a toughness 8 armor saving 2-up vehicle. So because that, none of the impact hits do anything against the Goliath. So that part was absolutely insane. And to make matters worse, Jarek decides to operate the Heavy Flamer, which is mounted on a turret, and it goes right through the center of the Deathkiller Wartrak, as you can see in this vehicle. Just shoots those guys, all 3 of those guys, with flaming attacks. It's absolutely insane. Now, after it's all said and done, it does manage to hit Zogwart, the World Kill, the leader. He does fail his initiative test and falls off his vehicles and suffer a wound at the same time. At the same time, the Deathkiller Wartrak also suffers a wound, and Lord Wez, which is the champion on top of the vehicle, he also suffers a wound too, but he passes initiative tech. He's perfectly fine. Luckily for my friend, Brother Grimm, nobody caught on fire from the blaze attributes, so everyone's fine in that sense. So for Brother Grimm's next activation, then activates Bodhi. Bodhi takes a punk shot with his dum-dum rounds from his stub gun, but unfortunately for him, though, he misses his shots, so it's entirely uneventful for the most part. At the same time, Shagga also does a double move forward up to the center ramp there with his war bike, trying to get closer to the red faction at the same time. While that was occurring at the same time, Scream of the Emo does a simple action for both Mordecai Black as well as Simon Black. They both take simple actions in order to dismount the vehicle, and they make another simple action to move forward, getting ready to board the Deathkiller War Track and start fighting those guys in close combat. At the same time, Brody takes a basic action to steady his aim with his pistol, getting him +1 to hit, and then he does another basic action, open fire with his stub gun directly into Simon Black. He does manage hitting Mordecai Black, but unfortunately though, he fails to wound him, so Mordecai Black is currently pinned at this point, and that's pretty much makes up that action round on that one. And for his last action, Zogwarth the War Killer opens up with his plasma pistol directly into Garrison Star and manages to hit him, as well as put a serious injury on that character. Because of that, Garrison Star falls out of his vehicle, and he is currently laying on the ground bleeding out because taking a plasma shot to the chest is no laughing matter. And that pretty much ends the action phase for this one. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase, and unfortunately for my friend Scream of the Emo, Garrison Starn is still out of action, so he's currently on the ground bleeding out and questioning his life choices about running around the Ash Waste, fighting goblins armed with plasma pistols. And that takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. As you can see in this video, as you can see from this photo, the ramming attack that my buddy Brother Grimm did against the Goliath was actually not as well planned as he thought it was. Now both those vehicles are engaged in close combat. At the same time, he's also trying to flank on the sides as well as on the top and the bottom there with his war bikes trying to surround them. But at the same time, though, he's also taking a lot of damage at the same time against the attacks from the red faction. So with the action for turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both Scream of the Emo and Brother Grimm roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Ash Waste Nomads. My friend Brother Grimm got the initiative on this one. So what he decides to do is activate his leader, Zogwarth the War Killer. Now Zogwarth the War Killer uses his Overseer ability, which is a double action. What that does, it basically gives another fighter within range the ability to do 2 sets of actions, and he puts it on Wes. So Wes takes a simple action to get dismount his vehicle, and another simple action to finish off Garrison Starn with a coup de grace, putting out of action result on him, as well as an out cold result. So because that Garrison Starn is the first casualty for the red faction and first blood for the Nomads. And then for Wes's next set of action, he charges directly into Mordecai Black and engages him in close combat as well. Now Wes does eat up both the wounds for Mordecai Black, so Mordecai Black does crashing down face down to the ground. He is currently bleeding out, but unfortunately though, he put a serious injury on him, so he did not quite take him out of action, and that pretty much makes it the action for Wes. So for his next activation, my friend Brother Grimm decides to activate his leader, who decides to do a, like a group activation with the driver at the same time. So because of that, Rouse, he basically goes backwards for a double movement, going backwards, moving at half his normal movement speed, going back 8 inches, so that way he doesn't have to worry about getting boarded by the Ash Waste Nomads. At the same time, because he did a group activation, Simon Black, he goes charging directly into the back of, into Wes, engages him in close combat. He swings with that power pick and also managed to take Wes out of action as well, putting a grievous injury on him directly. So because of that, Wes gets stabbed in the back with a power pick. He goes crashing to the ground face first, and he'll be missing out his next battle report as a result of that. So things are not looking very good for either gang at this point. And to make matters worse, Simon Black decides to follow through real quick and goes directly into Slint, who's the driver of the Deathkiller War Trike. And so in response to that, my friend Brother Grimm decides to activate Slint, his driver for the Deathkiller War Trike. He's armed with a Rockatansky Special, which is a sawed-off shotgun that is unique to our Wasteland rules. Basically what that is, it basically acts as a sidearm in our campaign. It also has Strength 4 Scatter Shot, is what it ended up doing. So he managed to get 6 shots off directly into into Simon Black at Strength 4 with -1 AP. Basically, it put that poor fool out of action. You can kind of imagine it too. You can imagine this Aberrant climbing to the top of this Deathkiller War Trike, and the driver just pulls out a sawed-off shotgun and points it right in his face and pulls the trigger. Is what he does. And so because of that, both those Aberrants are currently on the ground bleeding out, which is a very precarious spot for them to be in. And because pretty much all the fighters for the red faction have been activated, the rest of the turn is dedicated to my friend Brother Grimm. So Brother Grimm then activates Shagga. Shagga decides to do a double movement on the top of his bike, driving along the top of the overpass, getting closer directly into the red faction. Looks like he's trying to flank him on the top there. And at the same time that's happening, I take that back. I apologize. The guy on the top, that was Draka. I'm sorry. This is Shaga. There we go. Shaga and his war bike, as well as his little guy Rhodey, they basically do a double simple action to go directly in front of the Death-Killer Wartrike. And both Rhodey as well as Shaga decide to dismount their vehicles. Another simple action, so that way they can charge directly into these two aberrants and finish them off in close combat, looks like, with the coup de grace. And for his very last action, Lord Humongous as well as Toady gets back into their bikes, and they move up their normal lunar allowance as well, so that way they can show up to the rest of the Death-Killer Wartrike and help them out. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase. And unfortunately for Scream of the Emo, both of his fighters, both aberrants, Zybin as well as Mordecai Black, they still rolled serious injuries, which means they're completely vulnerable for being attacked. And of course, if anybody runs into them, they can finish on with the coup de grace, and that will be the end of them as well. So things are not looking very good right now for the Red faction. So with the that pretty much ends the turn on this one. Alright, so here's the overhead shot of turn number 2. As you can see, the Warboyz are trying to swarm directly into the center there. At the same time, the Red faction is pulling back as well. And things are not looking very good right now for Red faction, because 2 of their aberrants are right now seriously injured, and they look like they're about to get finished off here in a second, which would be all kinds of bad. So with the end of the turn, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and both my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. And then we go directly to top of turn number 3, and the Genestealer Cults get to go first. And as you can see in this photo, my buddy Scream of the Emo decided to just scream YOLO, and he does a double action, forcing the Goliath to ram directly into the Warbike, where both Shaga as well as his guy, I believe that guy's name is Bodhi, as well as bike number 3, all 3 of those guys get hit by the ramming power of the Goliath. And that Goliath's got a really powerful ramming power, giving it 2d6 impact hits, right? Strength 8, no less. So this is going to be absolutely devastating for the Warboyz. And as you can see, there's all kinds of added actions. Both Shaga as well as the little punk crew member Bodhi, both those guys suffer grievous injuries results as a result of that. So because of those 2 guys are out of action now. And he also managed to decommission bike number 3. Now, in case you're wondering how it works, what ends up happening is if you hit the hull of a vehicle, if you damage it enough, you can actually cripple the vehicle and actually decommission it, which you can do. So in this case, he ate up through all 4 wounds as well, and actually, I think he put like 8 wounds total on this bike. So because of that, he gets to roll 4 injury dice. Now, when you roll 4 injury dice for the vehicles, what ends up happening is that you get flesh wounds for 1 flesh wound for a flesh wound result, as always, 2 flesh wounds for a serious injury result, and 3 flesh wounds for out of action. I forgot how many flesh wounds he ended up putting on this thing, but he ate up both the vehicle's wounds as well as its hull. So because of it, the vehicle is now decommissioned, which means that my opponent either my friend Brother Grim has to spend credits to repair the vehicle, otherwise he won't be able to use it for his next battle report. And just like that, 1 vehicle and 2 fighters are already down. So, not to be outdone, my friend Brother Grim decides to activate Zogwart the World Killer as a group activation with Slint as well. Now, Slint is glued into the vehicle, so he can't literally leave the vehicle in the miniature camp, but imagine him jumping out of the vehicle for a second. The 2 of them bum rush directly into both Zybin Black as well as Mordecai Black, and they also put them both out of action as well with the coup de grace. Mordecai Black suffers a grievous injury, and same thing with Zybin Black as well. So those guys go into recovery, and they automatically won't be able to participate in the next battle report either. While this is occurring at the same time, Lord Humongous does a double activation, moving up forward. A single activation. I'm sorry, did a simple action, moving up forward with his war bike directly next to the Goliath, and he actually spends a activation to shoot. Same thing with his crew member, what's his name, Toady. They also try to shoot as well. Unfortunately for them, though, they weren't able to cause any injuries because of the enclosed hull rule that this vehicle has. However, Jarek, he's the guy who's armed with Drizzo, the guy armed with a grenade launcher, he decides to take a basic action aim with his grenade launcher, another basic action open fire, manages to hit Lord Humongous directly center mass with the grenade launcher, but once again, failed to wound him. So because of that, Lord Humongous fails initiative test, falls off his bike, and he is currently pinned at this point as well. Now, if you're wondering how come my friend didn't open up with the Heavy Flamer, I forgot to mention this. I forgot to take a photo of it. I do apologize. What happens is when the Heavy Flamer opened up on the Death-Killer Wartrike, it did roll up an ammo roll result, and because of the beg, borrow, and steal special rules that we have for this campaign setting, if you use a weapon that fails an ammo test that's not on the Wasteland weapons table, which is abundant in the Wasteland, what ends up happening is that all ammo checks end up being a 6-up. It's to represent the fact that ammo is really, really hard to come across in the Wasteland, especially if you're not using Wasteland weapons, which are plentiful in the Wasteland, so because of that, the Heavy Flamer has no ammo for it. So if you're wondering what the situation with that is, that's what we're doing in this campaign setting. And the rest of the action phase is dedicated to Brother Grimm. So what ends up happening is that another guy jumps onto the vehicle as well. What ended up happening is that Draka, the guy who was in Warbike number 2, who was on the top of the overpass, because he's got a pull cat boarding pipe, which means that he can make boarding actions 6 inches away from the vehicle. So in this case, the punk roadie actually does a boarding action, passes initiative check automatically because he's using a boarding pipe to get on board. He engages the adept leader Virian Thrace in close combat. Unfortunately, though, he fails all of his attack rolls, so nothing much happens there. And Toady the Punk, since he's also on the boarding pike on top of Lord Humongous' bike, he also passes his initial test, lands on top of the vehicle as well. He goes after Rouse, the guy who's operating the vehicle, but unfortunately, though, he also fails his attack, so nothing much happens there. So that being said, we go directly to the end phase. And during the end phase, unfortunately for both my friends Scream of the Emo as well as Brother Grimm, both their gangs failed their bottle tests because of the number of casualties that took place on that one. So because of that, they will have to start taking cool tests in the next round for all their fighters. But at this point, that both of my friends realize that they don't really want to risk more than they already have at this point, so they decide to both call the game at this point, ending this game in a draw, which is the very first draw I think we've ever had on this channel in a Necromunda Battle Report, so which is actually kind of cool. Both my friends, Scream of the Emo and Brother Grimm, were like, you know what, we should just take a break because we're losing way too much in this fight, and they really didn't want to risk more than they already lost, so because of that, they both decide, yep, you know, there's no shame in admitting a draw, and they both shake hands, and that's where the battle report ends. As you can see there with the very first draw for our channel. So with that being said, we go directly to the after action report because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the post-game, and this actually ended up being a draw, so nobody really lost in this one either. So let's go on and talk about the gangs real quick. So first off, the Warboyz of the Ash Waste Nomads. They suffered 3 injuries. Wes, he actually suffered a humiliating injury, being backstabbed in the back with a pick will do that to you, I guess. He lost 1 point to his leadership as well as 1 point to his cool. Draka and Rody, they both also suffered grievous injuries as well. For advancement, several members of the gangs did advance. Zagor, the World Killer, leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his strength. Wes leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his strength as well. And Lord Humongous leveled up to level 2, learning the parry skill with his huge axe. At the same time, Slint also leveled up as well to level 2, earning +1 to his willpower. From their territories, from their Wasteland territory, they actually rolled up the Caravan Raid, which is a 6-up on that one. Managed to get 80 credits and also managed to get their food taken care of because when you attack a caravan in our Wasteland rules, how it ends up happening is that all of your food necessary requirements is taken care of, so no one has to worry about starvation at this point. Now, he doesn't get any new territories because his game ended in a draw, so no new territories from them. Now, from the trading post, they got 30 credits for the scenario as well as 80 credits from their territories, bringing 110 credits in total. With those 110 credits, my friend Brother Grimm spent 100 credits of it repairing Warbike number 2, making all of its toughness and wounds go back up again, so that way it can be used in the next scenario. He then places 10 remaining credits into the stash, and that's all he did for that one. For his reputation, earns +1 for fighting against the Red Faction for the very first time. However, he did bottle out, so because that he loses that point of reputation, bring his grand total to 0 at this point. His new record now is at 0 wins and 0 losses and 1 draw, and his new gang rating now is at 2,090 points. Alright, so that takes us directly to the Red Faction of the Genestealer Cults, and this also ended in a draw as well. For injuries, Gyrus and Starn, the Hybrid Acolyte gets an out cold result, while Mordecai Black and Simon Black both suffer grievous injuries, so because of that, they will not be participating in the next battle report. For advancements, 2 members of the gang did level up. Zyvan Black actually leveled to level 2, earning +1 to his weapon skill, and Rouse, the driver of the Goliath, actually leveled up twice because he ran both those characters with his vehicle and put them out of action, earning +1 strength as well as +1 toughness, so Rouse is a deadly driver for the Goliath. From their territories, from the Wasteland territories, they also rolled a 6 for theirs, getting a rating of Caravan. So because of that, they earned 30 credits for themselves, and also their food needs are taken care of as well. And he also doesn't get any new territories because that one ended on a draw. From the trading post, they get 10 credits from the scenario, as well as 30 credits from the territories, and my friend Scream decided to take all 4 of those credits and put them directly into his stash. For his reputation, he earns 1 point for fighting against the Warboyz for the very first time, but because he bottled out, he does not receive any reputation for that, so his reputation is still at 0. His new record now is at 0 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw, and his new gang rating now is at 2,075 points. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to finish up battle report number 67 on this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.